One of my most frequently received questions on social media is, what yarn are you using? I get this question almost every single day, and so that is what this video is all about. Hi, my name is Caroline Langford. I'm the maker and designer behind All Things the Happy Home Collective, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am so excited about this video today because I will be sharing with you all of the yarns that I have discovered and loved over the last 6+ years of my fiber art business. This is honestly the type of video that would have been so helpful to see 6 years ago, but here we are, and I hope it'll be really helpful for you. Just a little disclaimer, this again is a video about the yarns that I use in my work. If you are interested in the work I do and you've been wondering what yarns I'm using, this is not a yarns I would recommend for a beginner crocheter or someone just getting started with fiber arts. This is not a video recommending that you go spend all of your money on all of these yarns today. I've been experimenting with these yarns and collecting them over the last 6+ years, and so it's taken a lot of time for me to be able to try all of these. This is just meant to be helpful and maybe show you a yarn that you haven't seen before. All right, so let's get started. If you don't even know what it is that I do, I am a multi-craft fiber artist. In the last 6+ years, I've been focusing mainly on 2 general designs that I will show you now. This is my floral macra-weave style. So these pieces use macrame weaving and crochet. And then a newer design that I just started making last year is my embroidered floral granny squares. So these use crochet and embroidery. I use a lot of the same yarns between those 2 designs and some different ones specific to each. I also last year started creating online tutorials for some of my designs. The tutorials I have now are mostly crochet based, and then my embroidered floral granny squares course is the crochet and embroidery, teaching a lot of these designs. So I'll be going through the yarns I use for the pieces I make and many of the yarns that I also use in my tutorials. This is the second take I have made of this video. The first time I talked way too long and I wasn't super organized, and so I forgot some things. So I'm going to be moving really quickly, and I will include links and names in the caption of this video as well. Before we get into that, I wanted to give just a little bit of my yarn background. I shared some of this in my fiber art origin story video. I learned to knit and crochet when I was 10 years old, and other than a few people who showed me a few things and helped me get started, I really didn't have anyone else in my life who also knit and crocheted, or at least was as interested in it as I was. So I didn't have people showing me the yarns that they were using, introducing me to new yarns. I really just, for many years, knew the yarns that I could find at Michael's or the other big craft store near me. For many years, I used mostly the Red Heart Super Saver acrylic yarn. This was a great yarn for me to use when I was just starting out. I loved that it came in a lot of different colors, and of course it was very budget friendly for me. Then later on, when I got my driver's license, I started to discover the local yarn stores to me. And this was the first time that I was exposed to the types of yarns you see in a local yarn store, which is smaller companies, beautiful yarns, more than $20 a skein often, and that was incredible for me to see. One of my favorites that I loved to use in my late teens, early 20s was Noro. It's a Japanese yarn brand. It was prevalent in my local yarn store, and it came in so many beautiful colors, and it was a lot of blend yarns of wool and silk and variegated, and it was just so stunning and one of my favorites to use. Then fast forward a little bit, in my early 20s, I went to New York City for the first time with some friends, and my main objective among the usual New York City things while I was there was to discover yarns. So I typed in yarn stores, and the one that I found and visited was Loopy Mango. This again was one of the first small yarn stores I had ever seen, and I instantly loved the yarns that Loopy Mango offers. These are just a few Loopy Mango yarns that I will talk more about later, but this is the first yarn that I ever bought from them. It was a really big skein and the most money I've ever spent on one skein of yarn ever at that time. And I did make a scarf with it, but I live in California. I honestly don't wear scarves that much, and so I have since taken it apart and I've used it in my floral wall hangings. But you can see their yarns are just super chunky, bulky, squishy, so much fun. This is their Merino number 5 in 2 different colors that I love. It comes in a lot of lovely colors. So shortly after that time, I got married. A couple years later, I started the business that I have now, the Happy Home Collective. And right before I started this business, I learned macrame. And that was what eventually led me to making my floral macro-weave designs. So for the first 5-ish years of my business and being on the internet and the fiber art world, I wasn't really a part of the fiber art world of the internet before then. Most of the artists that I was seeing and becoming acquainted with were macrame and weaving artists. And if you follow macrame and weaving artists and crocheting and knitting artists and embroidery artists, they're all using a lot of different yarns. So I was exposed to a lot of new fibers in the macrame and weaving community that I wasn't really seeing in the crochet and knitting community. So I'm going to start by talking about these designs and the yarns I use in them. One reason why it's so hard for me to answer the question on social media, what yarns are you using or what yarn are you using, is because in one piece, I might be using yarns from easily 10 different companies. So I'm just going to kind of go through this piece and talk about what I'm using here. So for the background of these floral macro-weave pieces, I'm using cotton string. Here are some of my cotton strings. I have so many more than this. I primarily buy my cotton strings from Naroma Studio. I've been shopping with Cindy at Naroma Studio since the beginning. When I learned how to macrame, I went to a workshop and that was where her string was from. And so I've been shopping with Cindy ever since. This white string that I use a lot is her super soft natural cotton string. She also has a lot of different colors and in a variety of sizes. She has larger spools and mini spools. I primarily use 5mm, but sometimes I'll use 3mm, and then I also use the 9mm. That is what she mostly sells, and those are the sizes I like to use. Another company that I have purchased from recently is Bobbiny. You can purchase directly from Bobbiny, and I've also found a lot of suppliers on Etsy or other artists who sell Bobbiny in their shops. They also have a lot of nice cotton strings, and I like the colors that they offer. This is a 5mm cotton rope. I am honestly not sure where I purchased this from, but a lot of macrame supply companies sell various versions of this twisted cotton rope, and that's another fun option. There are so many other macrame supply companies. Naroma Studio and Bobbiny are the main 2 that I shop with, but there are so many. There's Unfettered Supply in Canada. There's multiple great suppliers in the UK. Merrymaker Studio is in Australia. Also in the US is Gansett. I have shopped with them a little bit. They do have a wide variety of macrame supplies, and they also have a lot of wool yarns, and I think they even sell wool rovings, so they're another company to check out. All right, moving on to the yarns in this piece. There are a lot of different ones. So this light purple one here is Loopy Mango. That's the one I showed you earlier. They have a variety of wool and cotton yarns that I love. This kind of purple with the ribbon and this purple are both handspun yarns. I will be sharing a list of some handspun yarn artists later in the video. There are so many great artists out there to shop with, and those are really fun yarns to include in these types of pieces. 2 other companies that I shop with a lot and carry very similar yarns is We Are Knitters and Wool and the Gang. So this chunky wool yarn is from Wool and the Gang. This, I believe, is from Wool and the Gang. This white is likely from We Are Knitters. They have a variety of super bulky wools that I like to use, as well as some chunky wools. We Are Knitters has the petite wool and Mary wool. I use both of those a lot. Wool and the Gang has another yarn called Al Pacino Merino that I really like. So those are 2 companies to definitely check out. For wool rovings, I shop again mostly with Naroma Studio and then also Mohair and More on Etsy. If you've never bought wool rovings before, they kind of come like this. You can select how much you want in ounces. I believe with Mohair and More you can buy as small as 1 ounce or 8 ounces or more. I usually buy 4 ounces. It comes in a little bag like this, and this will last me a really long time. One little story I wanted to share in all of this is when I was first on the internet, in my fiber art journey, starting to create and share my work, I had no idea where people were buying their yarn. So the only way I found out was by following artists, asking them questions, or maybe they were tagging the sources in their photos. And I wanted to buy wool rovings. I wanted to incorporate that more in my work. At the time, I only had a couple on hand, some that a friend gave me and some that I bought off of Facebook Marketplace. And so I saw an artist who was selling wool rovings, and I intended to buy from her. I did buy some from her, and I messaged her and just very naively, innocently said, "Hey, where do you get your wool rovings from?" Because I honestly just didn't know. I didn't know where people were shopping. And since she was selling them, this was her wholesale information, she did not tell me. And this was really an eye-opening moment for me. I'm not offended in any way. Good for her for having a boundary, and she didn't want to tell me, she didn't need to. But it really just showed me that in moments like that, I needed to be a little bit more aware of the other artist's perspective. For artists who are also selling supplies, that is their wholesale information. They've probably spent a lot of time and money doing research to be able to find their suppliers. They might have suppliers in other countries, and they're not always going to be willing to just give out that information for free. So anyways, just something to think about when you're approaching artists and asking them where they get their supplies from. So one more thing about rovings, like I said, I shop mostly with Naroma Studio and Mohair and More. Paradise Fibers is another big one. There's a lot of artists who sell rovings, some vegan rovings. You could go on Etsy and find a lot of different shops who are selling rovings as well. Another company that I shop from a lot is Quince & Co. I love their puffin yarn. It's a chunky wool yarn. It comes in a lot of really nice colors. It's also semi-felted a little bit. It's not as shiny as some of the other wool yarns that I use, so I like the texture that it provides. This wool art yarn that I'll talk about more later is also from Naroma Studio. This also kind of semi-felted looking wool yarn, this one here too, those are from Kinua Yarn, so it's Kinua. They have a couple different styles of wool yarns that I really love. This is one as well from them. This yarn right here, I don't know if you can see it, it has a little bit of gold in there. That is from Knit Collage. Knit Collage is like my dream yarn company. I love their yarn so much. They're so happy and colorful and whimsical. I believe this is their spun cloud yarn, but I'm not completely sure. I would just go on their site and check them all out because they are all stunning. There are some yarns in my work that I purchased from companies that don't exist anymore. So that's kind of hard when I want to share with you where to get it from. Like I used to shop with a company called Pine Rose & Co. She sold chunky wool yarns and she is no longer open. So some of the yarns in this piece are from her. All right, now we'll look at one of my embroidered pieces. A lot of the same companies. So my cotton strings, again, are from Naroma Studio. The wool yarns are from We Are Knitters, Quince & Co., Naroma Studio. That is mainly where all of these ones are from. As I was creating my course for my embroidered floral granny squares, I did intentionally try a lot of new yarns because I know we all have different preferences and budgets. So one yarn I found in that search that I've been using a lot and I think is a great option is this is a Lion brand Roving Origins yarn. So I probably ordered this online, but I've also seen it at Michael's, I believe. This is a thinner wool yarn, and so I will sometimes use both ends of the yarn together, and it comes in a lot of really nice colors. Another company I found in my search while I was creating my course is called Inspire a Mind. This is a wool yarn I got from them. I originally found them on Etsy, but they do have their own website. And another company that I tried a bunch of yarns from is a website called Wool & Company, and I just went on their website and searched for their chunky and super bulky wool yarns, looked at the ones that I thought I would like. And often when I'm trying a new yarn, I just order 1, 2, 3 colors. I'm not ordering every color in the whole line, just so I can try it out and see if I like it. And then from there, I will try other colors. Another yarn that I use in my work some and people always ask about is this jumbo wool core spun yarn from Love Fest Fibers. They have a few different lines of these yarns, a lot of different colors, and you can buy them in small amounts or really large amounts. This is the yarn that I used in my Jumbo Joy Flower Wool Trivet in my newest tutorial. Those are just really fun yarns to work with, so I like to crochet with them, and I also use them in my wall hangings. I mentioned before that I used to buy a lot of chunky wool yarns from Pine Rose & Co. She's no longer open. However, right around the time that she closed, Love Fest Fibers, that sells those jumbo wool yarns, started selling this chunky wool yarn as well. I believe they call it Twin Merino. They have a lot of different colors and they look like this. So those are another great wool yarn option that I use in both styles of wall hangings. I had to go get my list for the next yarns I want to talk about. One thing I do want to say about all of the yarns that I use, for the most part, I wait for sales. I rarely pay full price for any of these yarns. If you're going on these sites and looking them up, you're going to see a lot of them are over $20 a skein, sometimes $30 or even $40 or more. So I often wait for sales. I know the colors that I use, so I try to stay stocked up on those, and then when a sale comes around, I'll buy more then. Companies like We Are Knitters and Wool and the Gang have sales pretty regularly. We Are Knitters will have sales up to even 30 or 40%. Neuroma Studio has sales pretty often. Some companies almost never have sales, like Knit Collage I don't think has a lot of sales. Another way that you can get these yarns at a discount is by shopping D-stash sales. A lot of fiber artists have those where they're selling off yarns that they're not using anymore. Those are a great way to find a deal. Or even checking on eBay, Facebook Marketplace, or Etsy. People are often selling these yarns at a discount there as well. So next I want to talk about hand-spun yarns and hand-dyed yarns. There are so many artists dyeing and spinning their own yarns. They are stunning. I love to use those in my work because they're so unique and one of a kind, and I get to support directly another artist. So here I have a couple of hand-dyed yarns that I got from Rooted Woven Art. She also spins yarns. I've purchased some from her. This is a fun hand-dyed yarn that I got from Sprinkled Fibers. I couldn't possibly list all of the artists who dye yarns, but that's just something to look for if you come across a fiber artist who's doing that. They often have really fun colors, colorways that you wouldn't be able to find anywhere else. For hand spun yarns, I have a few here and I have a long list of artists I'm going to share with you. This is one, look how stunning that is. This is from, she used to be called Strawberry Blonde Fibers, now she's Whimsy Fiber Co. Her yarns are beautiful. I can't wait to use this one. This is a more scrappy hand spun yarn from whatever Mama makes. And I'm pretty sure that I sent her my yarn straps and then she made this yarn out of them. These are a lot of the colors I use a lot. I've done that a couple times and it's really fun to have a yarn made out of my yarn straps. And then I get to use it in my work again. This yarn is from Designs by Amber Fibers. She includes sequins. Look how beautiful that is. Can't wait to use this one. A few other artists who spin yarn that I've shopped with and love their yarns is The Woven Hand. Kat makes some absolutely beautiful yarns. She also sells fiber packs and dyes a lot of her own yarn, so she's a fun one to shop with. The Spectral Fox spins really big, beautiful, colorful yarns. Sumi and Me is another one. Kimberly makes some really beautiful yarns. Three Blue Larks, I believe she's in Australia. I have bought some yarns from her. Happy Melody Art, she focuses on vegan fibers and makes some really beautiful yarns with those. Got Weaver Fever is another one, and I already mentioned Rooted Woven Art. There are so many other hand spun yarn artists, so if you are one, drop your name below so people can find you. I mentioned earlier fiber packs. Fiber packs are a great way to try a lot of different yarns at once and probably also get some hand spun yarn or hand dyed yarn. A few artists that I know regularly create fiber packs are Mocha Blue Fiber Art, Strand Texture, The Woven Hand, who I mentioned earlier, also Ashton Zager Fiber Art. She has weaving fiber kits as well as weaving tutorials. A lot of the yarn shops and yarn makers that I've mentioned obviously are small businesses. I love to support small businesses whenever I can. So another yarn store, she has an actual yarn store and also a website, is Moon and Yarn Craft Room. You should check her out. She stocks a lot of the yarns that I've mentioned as well as so many others, and you can shop from her website. Lastly, I wanted to go through some of the yarns that I use in my tutorials. In my tutorials, I always try to suggest a variety of yarns. So there's usually the yarn that I'm using in the project, and then I try to suggest a few other options if you're looking for different colors, ones that might be more accessible worldwide and in a variety of budgets. So for my everyday floral trivet tutorial, this is the wool art yarn from Naroma Studio. That's what I use in the tutorial. If you're making a trivet and you're going to be actually putting hot items on it, I would always recommend using a natural fiber like wool or cotton. You could use the cotton strings that I mentioned earlier for a design like this. If you're just using it as a decoration and not putting anything hot on it, you could use any yarn that you want. I just recently made my same trivet design in a new yarn. This is Jamieson's of Shetland Marl wool yarn, and I got it from Jimmy Bean's Wool. It also comes in a wide variety of colors, and I think it goes really well for a trivet, just those natural tones. I really love it. For my Forever Flower tutorial, I am mostly using Woolly's Thick and Quick. That has become one of my favorite go-to super bulky yarns. It's very accessible, comes in a lot of different colors, and it's pretty budget friendly. Again, I am almost never paying full price for yarn. So when I shop for Lion Brand Woolly's Thick and Quick, I am usually shopping at Joann, which I don't know what the future of that is, if there's just no shopping there at all anymore. But that's usually where I bought it. Michael's, you can shop from Lion Brand. I believe there's other websites, even Amazon, that sell this yarn, and I always wait for a sale. This is a blanket I made for my tutorial just recently. I've also used this same yarn in a couple sweaters that I've made and will be making again in my upcoming sweater tutorial. Other yarns from Lion Brand that I've tried out are the Hue and Me. I'm making a sweater out of that yarn soon. And the 24/7 cotton, I used that for a little purse kit that I bought when I was first learning how to make floral granny squares. And then I have since used the 24/7 cotton in some of my embroidery designs. This is my Jumbo Joy flower wool trivet. So this is the Love Fest fibers, and then the outer yarn is from We Are Knitters. And then in the same tutorial, I made a smaller version of the trivet with a braided cotton cord from Bobany and a flower pillow using Bernat blanket yarn. These are two of the sweaters that I have made for myself, and I get asked pretty regularly what yarns I'm using for these. This is the Woolly's Thick and Quick. These are the super bulky wools that I mentioned earlier from We Are Knitters and Wool and the Gang. They are basically the same. To me, they seem the same. And so I use them together in a lot of projects. The olive green and the ochre yellow are from We Are Knitters. And then the eucalyptus, cameo rose, and the lavender are all from Wool and the Gang. Well, I can't believe it, but I think I covered everything that I wanted to say. I hope this was helpful. I hope it answered some questions for you about what yarns am I using and where to find them. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. And if you discover a new yarn from this video that you're excited to try, let me know that too. I'd love to hear about it. Obviously, I love talking about yarn. I love yarn so much. I always have. It brings me so much joy. I would rather go yarn shopping versus any other type of shopping any day. I've included a lot of links below for these yarns and where you can find them. Some of the links may be affiliate links. That's a small way that you can show me support in what I'm trying to do on my YouTube channel. I get a small commission when you purchase through those links. And these are the yarns that I have been using in my work specifically. This is not a complete list of every wool yarn or cotton yarn out there. If you have some favorite yarns that would kind of fit into this genre and you want to drop that in the comments below, that'd be super helpful. Or if you are a hand-spun yarn artist or yarn dyer, drop your name below as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.